Right now, I can tell you we have plenty of documented cases around our state where the kid either goes to a family day home or mom decides not to go to work because someone's sitting on a waiting list. All the while there are vacancies somewhere else in the parish. We can change that if we just coordinate. I believe we have to get to one application, and I believe that the St. Tammany school system can lead on this as the largest provider in the parish by far, but one application to help coordinate where children go so that we don't have a kid, say, holding seats at 3 different places while someone else sits on 3 different wait lists. We really can end that and provide more opportunities for kids to access high-quality pre-K. Fourth and finally, if we're going to make all of this happen, we have to talk about financial equity among our various programs. And the reality is, and this isn't, people aren't totally aware of this, Head Start has dramatically more funding than any of the other programs. It's funded by a grant from the federal government, and I think it's a well-funded program, all things considered. Probably not as much as they would like, but reasonably well-funded. Our private schools and our LA4 programs are funded at a level that's around $4,500 per child. That's not as much in most parishes as the state contributes for kindergarten, although it is in this parish. And childcare is about $1,700 per child. And childcare in Louisiana has dropped over time, but the state has required that our childcare provider colleagues maintain the same number of slots, meaning that the state has said you have to provide the same number of seats for kids, but we're going to give you less money. Well, of course, what do? They logically have to increase the size of the parent's obligation. And of course, there's a little that's sort of counterintuitive. You're talking about a program that was designed for people who can't afford to pay for themselves, now they have to pay more. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're seeing a lot of vacancies in child care centers because mom or dad or whoever it is can't afford to send a young man or woman to child care. We've got a lot of vacancies in child care across the state. If we're going to have a college-educated, an associates-educated teacher in every child care classroom by 2019, we're going to have to make a modest but legitimate investment in child care. I believe we should also make a modest but legitimate investment in LA4 to raise that subsidy size so that it is equivalent to what we pay for kindergarten across the state. And we have 5,000 kids across the state who are sitting at home. They will need additional seats too. So we have 3 areas of funding, and the legislature will have to work on this. But unlike in K-12 education, unlike in higher ed, unlike in healthcare, for whatever reason, the newspapers don't write a whole lot about early childhood funding. And I think it's time that we start that conversation, at least. It's a tough time in Baton Rouge. It's a tough time in our budget, but we're not going to be able to accomplish these goals if we don't have at least some equity in the way that we fund our child care programs, our Head Starts, and our public and private pre-kindergartens. So, the things you should look for from us. 1, we're going to be moving toward a licensure system that includes the class instrument, but we're not going to be doing that for a couple of years. 2, we're not going to be using any standardized assessment like the Teaching Strategies Gold, but we will be making that available for educators statewide. 3, common enrollment and getting to a point where we don't have centers and schools and such not talking to each other so that we can fill slots where kids want slots, where families want slots, and get people off of wait lists. 4, equity in terms of funding, and with that comes a commitment to give teachers the opportunity to raise their credentials so that they're prepared to be the early educators that we want them to be, and so that they don't just up and leave child care centers as soon as they get their credentials, a meaningful subsidy to our child care centers so that they have to pay the wages that they need to pay college educated person. It's a lot to accomplish, and I want to thank everybody involved in the pilot in St. Tammany for being a statewide leader. I don't think any of this would have happened across the state had you all and the other dozen or so parishes not gotten involved early, and I thank you. So already half the parishes in the state are involved. I believe by this spring, every parish in the state will be involved, and by 2015, it better be involved. That's the law.